konverentsi ja järgnevalt siis siirdume sellisesse toredasse ja huvitavasse riiki nagu Island ja meie järgmine esineja on siis Gudfinna Hardardottir ja ta töötab Islandis Islandi haridus- ja koolitusteenuste keskuses. Ja islandi keel on selle poolest huvitav, et kui ütleme näiteks Põhjamaades, näiteks ütleme kas või Rootsiski on nagu isapõhiselt pannakse nimesid, näiteks Svensson ja Karlsson, siis Islandil tehakse seda emapõhiselt, ehk siis kiire islandi keele kursus, dottir, väga lähedane sõna eestikeelse sõnaga tütar, isegi kõlab peaaegu sarnaselt, ehk siis siin on nagu mitte kellegi poeg, vaid kellegi tütar, et selle järgi nagu pannakse nimesid. Ja kuna siis Islandil on ka see sarnane siis täiskasvanu hariduse hindamise süsteem täitsa töötab, nii et väga põnev kuulata siis vastavat kogemust ja vaatame siis hoolega, et kas meil oleks äkki midagi siit üle võtta. Et Gudfinna, the floor is yours.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you said some nice things about me. I didn't understand, and I forgot to put my translation thing on. So, first of all, thanks to the Estonian Ministry of Education and Science for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and to tell you a little bit about our experience. First, I want to point out that I brought 2 brochures with me. I'm sorry, they're not copies for everybody, but they are lying there. One is about the Education and Training Service Center, the organization I come from, and the other one is about the EQM or the Recall project. So if you want some copies, there are some over there, but sorry, not enough for everybody. Now, first, because you need to understand the context. We've been talking, or we've heard something about the context this morning, and because you need to understand the context, I will tell you a little bit about the Education and Training Service Center at first. Then I will just go and talk a little bit about the European Quality Mark. Not much, I'm not going into deep. And then about the implementation of the EQM in Iceland. And then I expect to both have questions from you and maybe some ideas on how to proceed with this. But first of all, to the Education Training Service Center, and a warm regards from my colleagues. I decided to bring a photo of them. It was established 10 years ago, in the year 2002, in a connection with a collective agreement by the Icelandic Confederation of Labour and the Confederation of Icelandic Employers. So the stakeholders are partners from the labour market, meaning that the formal education is not a stakeholder as such in this centre. In 2010, we had a new act, or new law on adult education, and I will tell you a little bit about this later. So at that time, the forum was expanded and the Federation of State and Municipal Employees joined the party, as well as the state and the Association of the Municipalities as parties from the employer side. It is a collaborative forum for adult education and vocational training, and it is a non-profit organization and financed by the state. The main objective of the Education Training Service Center is to meet the needs of adults with short formal education and also to meet the needs of the labor market for competent employees with up-to-date knowledge and skills. The target group is people within the Icelandic labor force. that do not have completed education on upper secondary level, sorry. This group, if we compare it to European data, this group is relatively large in Iceland, or around 30% of the labor force. So, of course, we want to raise the educational level of the population, and in the governmental policy statement for Iceland 2020, one of the goals is to reduce this number to 10%. But you know, 2020 is only 8 years, it's only 8 years until we have the year 2020, so probably we will not reach this goal, but nevertheless, it's there. Now, the Education Training Service Centre operates in accordance with a service agreement with the Icelandic Ministry of Education, Science and Culture, and the main tasks according to this agreement are to develop, increase and improve educational training offers for the target group. You have to remember the target group are the ones that have not completed upper secondary level. And by that, we write curricula or educational programs and do some other stuff. Those educational programs, they have to meet similar requirements as general educational offers on upper secondary level within the formal educational system. Now, another task is to develop career guidance for this target group, and a large number of people within the target group are high school dropouts that need guidance, and also solid guidance has proven to be very important for the validation of prior learning, which is another task of the centre. Now, we assist the Ministry in building up a system for validating non-formal and informal learning, as well as training and work experience. And the Education Training Service Centre administrates the education fund, and I will tell you a little bit about this fund later also, that allocates financial support to lifelong learning centres that are offering courses, career guidance and validation of formal learning to the target group of the centre. Also to the context, I have heard several times this morning that Estonia is a small country and Tallinn is not a big city. Well, Iceland is even smaller, and even smaller than Tallinn. You have to remember we only have 320,000 people living in this large country. It's relatively large, the country itself, but small population. So from 2002, the Education Training Service Centre has worked in close cooperation with certain lifelong learning centres. Today they are 14, spread over the country. They're all connected in some way or another to the owners of the ETSC, and the main finances are based on public funding or funding agreed upon in a common agreement between trade unions and association of employers. 13 of those lifelong learning centres are providing learning and of course counselling and validation, but one of them is only providing counselling and validation. So when I speak about learning providers that are providing learning, we're only speaking about 13. Of course, we have more lifelong learning centres in Iceland, but both private and public, but either their focus group is other than the target group of the Education Training Service Centre, or they are not linked to the owners of the centre, like those 14. Now, from start, the Education Training Service Centre has focused on quality, and according to the service agreement with the Ministry, one of the main responsibilities of the centre is to enhance the quality of educational activities and guidance through the development of quality standards. The first quality standards were developed 8 years ago, and since then, the centre has participated in both European and Nordic projects on quality in adult education. And also we provide training for the trainers, and quality standards are always a part of the program at such courses, when we offer those training courses. Now a little bit about the European Quality Mark. It is a product of 2 Leonardo projects, you could say that, because first we had this one, the ALL project, the accreditation of lifelong learning, where you sort of got the idea and developed it a little bit further, but then we had RECALL, recognition of quality in lifelong learning, where partners took the ALL idea a step further and produced the EQM, or the European Quality Mark, and all the tools that are a part of the EQM. RECALL was a 2-year pilot project started in October 2006 and ended in December 2008. And the partners came from Denmark, Italy, Lithuania, Norway, Portugal, Slovenia, and the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom was also part of the ALL project, as well as other partners there. And the Education Training Service Center acted as the project promoter for the RECALL project. Why? Why RECALL? Why do a quality project? It addressed the increased need for quality control and transparency within lifelong learning. It developed a quality assurance system for lifelong learning providers, and the results were a set of applicable choices for providers seeking to improve the quality of the provision and promote themselves as accredited providers. Now I need to show you a little bit about the EQM, or the European Quality Mark. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I urge you to look at the website. There is an open website with all the tools, everything is open. According to the business model, because we produced a business model, if we could get this on a European level, we wouldn't have the website open to everybody. But for now, it's open for everybody. At the website, you will find description on the method of the EQM in 8 languages. You have to remember the partners were 8, and the main tools were all translated into the partners' languages. So you will find a lot of tools there, or a lot of versions. And we have general guidelines that are for both learning providers as well as the assessor or anyone else who wants to learn about the EQM. The application form for those applying for the EQM, and in Iceland they are using the application form. The self-assessment form, and of course the guidelines for the external assessor. We have also a collection of examples on best practice, and this is a data bank meant to help the learning providers find the right way to improve by seeing how other providers work. And we have examples from all partner countries. And then we have the business model, which is actually only in English, but the business model is telling you how the partnership saw the EQM work as a sustainable quality model on a European level. So please go and look at the website, it's all there. And if you want to learn another language than your own, you could try out. You have the Icelandic version, so this is also a language course. This is the EQM trilogy, as we called it. We didn't print everything. We only printed the guidelines, and I've only brought 1 copy with me because we're running out of copies. But you can gain those from the website. This is the assessment form, and then the guidelines for the assessor. And we will hear more about the assessment form later in the next presentation, if I remember the agenda. But the assessment process is the core of the EQM. The quality criteria or indicators are expressed in a questionnaire, the one I had here, that the learning provider must complete. All questions, how do you do this and that? And the criteria are transparent as the minimum requirements are set within the indicators. The learning provider will see what is applicable to get the EQM or the European mark. So that's why it's transparent. Now, providers aiming at getting external assessment will therefore be able to make improvements before the external assessment takes place, but it can also be used for those who are not applying for the EQM, but nevertheless want to improve the quality of the work, because it's open for everybody. Now, the implementation process and our experience. We had, in 2010, like I said before, a new law on adult education. This was a final part of a larger process about reviewing laws and regulations on educational matters. By that I mean, in 2008, we had new laws or new acts on kindergarten, on education in kindergarten, on education in primary school, on education on secondary level, upper secondary level, and education on university level. And so the Act on Adult Education in 2010 was like the fifth pillar in the educational system, meaning that it starts from birth almost, because many children are going into kindergarten by the age of 2, and then at the end it takes the lifelong learning process within the adult education. Yet, it doesn't take all lifelong learning in this act, because the main target of the act, or the target group, is the same as the target group of the Education Training Service Center. The aim of this act is to meet the need of the Icelandic labor force, or the Icelandic labor market, for skilled employees, and to enhance the educational level. You have to remember the educational level, or there are too many high school dropouts in Iceland. And the target group of this act is the same as the target group of the Education Training Service Center. So somebody could say it was built around the center, or for the center. As a part of setting this act was to establish the education fund that allocates government money to finance education training courses, counseling and validation for the target group, and learning providers that can receive such financial support must have been accredited by the Ministry of Education. So this is also a very important part of why we would say we have succeeded in implementing the European Quality Mark. And one goal of this law is to enhance the quality within lifelong learning. So the new act sets the tone, you could say, because learning providers applying for a formal accreditation from the ministry, so that they can apply for financial support from the education fund, need to have a quality system. Not the EQM, but a quality system. But the Ministry of Education has acknowledged the EQM to be such a system, a valid quality system. For this purpose, and then I urge you to remember this, look at or think of this picture, the centers or the providers, the learning providers that are going to be the first to apply for this accreditation of the ministry are the ones working in close cooperation with the Education Training Service Center. And they have been aware of the recall project, they have been aware of the European Quality Mark, they have been aware of quality standards from the beginning. So this is, remember the context. And also two of them were trying the criteria of the recall out when we were producing the EQM. Now, one could ask why the European Quality Mark? Well, first of all, the Education and Training Service Centre was the promoter of recall. We believe in the European Quality Mark. We believe in the criteria. We were there. We were partners in producing this project. And we're still promoting it. We're promoting it in Iceland within the cooperating centres. And we are also promoting it at a European level because we have an ongoing Leonardo partnership project with partners coming from Estonia, Italy, Lithuania, Norway, and Turkey, and trying to figure out how to make this a sustainable mark on a European level. We haven't found the answer yet, but maybe someday. Maybe you have the answer. So if you have any ideas, please say so. Now also, like I said before, two of the learning providers were participating in testing the EQM criteria, so they had positive experience. And you know, with 13 providers in close cooperation, everybody talks together, then you can just pick up the phone and talk to somebody and ask, how was your experience with the EQM? Do you think it's worth trying? So it helped. And also, and this is of course very important, we have all the EQM tools in Icelandic. We don't need to translate it. So we have it, both it's accessible and in Icelandic. And the EQM has been approved as a valid quality system for the purpose of being accredited by the Ministry of Education. And we found an external assessor, it's an Icelandic one, that was ready to use the EQM as assessment tool. Now, the state of play. In November, 1 year ago, the Education Training Service Centre and British Standards Institution Iceland agreed that the BSI would be the external assessor. They are or they have the most experience in using or accrediting against ISO indicators, but they looked at the EQM and said, yes, we can use them, we are willing to be the external assessor. Now, by the beginning of 2012, all 13 lifelong learning centers had announced that they would apply for the EQM, and they had paid the annual fee. In June 2012, 2 lifelong learning centers or learning providers were awarded the EQM, and one of them had been with us when we were testing the recall or the EQM criteria during the recall project. Now in November, or let's say December, because I made this presentation 1 week ago, something like that, and I just, by the end of last week, I just had an email from our external assessor saying that we now have 3 more, not 2 more, 3 more that have passed and will be awarded the EQM. So we have 5. Maybe I got an email today from the external assessor, so we could have 6 or 7, I'm not quite sure. But we have 5 out of 13 that have been approved and will be awarded the EQM. According to our external assessor, they will reach the goal of having assessed all 13 before Christmas. We don't know if they will all pass. Maybe some of them have to make some changes within their businesses. but they will at least have gone through the first act of this process. So these are our two first that were awarded the EQM. The one is in Reykjavik, and the other one is up in the northeast of Iceland. Of course, we have come across some, well, I'm not going to say problems, but more challenges. And it is time-consuming. It has taken more time than we expected, both within the lifelong learning centers and also within the Education and Training Service Center. It is partly because the supervision of the system is more time-consuming than we expected. Then we needed to, well, let's say, guide the external assessor a little bit, because their experience is in ISO, and they had a little bit of problems assessing the learning provision. They're used to assessing more the system or the management system, so they had to get into the EQM gear. And it took a little bit more time than was expected. Now, we also came across some amendments that needed to be made on the EQM tools, not regarded or not in regard to the indicators. It was more like some practical things, as with the application form, where there was no part of the application form where you could write the ID number of the firm, which is, well, that's on all Icelandic application forms. So, sort of things, and also the place on the application form, and also within the assessment form, it wasn't enough space to write everything you want to. So, sort of things we came across when we started using the tools. Also, in the EQM tools, there's no formal agreement or no form for formal agreement between the learning provider and the national agency of EQM. That was also pointed out by our learning providers. They wanted some formal agreement on this. They were paying their annual fee. They wanted something written from our side that we were also going to be a part of this. And we have done that. I've sent out the agreements in November, and so it's formal now. And we are also thinking of the annual fee. We have an annual fee, which is, for the year 2012, it was around 900 euros, and all learning providers paid that. For year 2013 and 14, it's going to be around 1,200 euros, or 190,000 Icelandic kronur. Probably it will not cover all the cost of the EQM system. It will not cover the cost of the labor we are doing at the Education and Training Service Center. Hopefully it will cover the cost of the external assessor. Time will tell. But the board of the Education and Training Service Center has decided that this is worth the cost, and there will probably be some extra cost. Now, there's also a question if this process is too heavy for small learning providers. We have providers with only maybe 2 employees. So could it be is it too much burden on them? We don't know. They haven't complained, actually. But we are planning on doing a survey among the learning providers in the beginning of year 2013 to ask them about their experience on going through this. It's also been a bit of a, we've had some telephone calls from the learning providers that were not all too happy with the external assessor and so on. So we need to sort of figure it out how we're going to go around it. And also, as I said before, we have been working in close cooperation with our learning providers, these 13 and learning providers. What if somebody else knocks on the door? How about the private market? They could also be offering, for example, computer courses for the target group. Will they knock on the door and try to get the EQM or the accreditation from the ministry? We don't know. We haven't had any calls from them yet, and we haven't found the answer to it. We would just sort of figure it out when it comes to this. If they will knock on the door, we don't know. So this is our experience, and you need to remember the context, how we're doing it. We would say that it is a bottom-up approach. We are working in a close cooperation with the learning providers. They have all agreed on going into this process. They've all agreed to pay the annual fee. It is the same for everybody, the annual fee. Even you might be a small learning provider, you might be a big learning provider. We just decided to have a lump sum. Everybody's paying the same, because it can be very expensive to go to a very small learning provider out in the country, and it can be less expensive to visit a learning provider within the capital area, a big one. So we decided everybody's paying the same. Nobody has complained about that. So I've ended my presentation, but I'm open for questions and suggestions. Please don't hesitate to say, I think you did it wrong. I think you could make something else than you did. So please.
No nii, kas on tekkinud küsimusi, et võite esitada küsimusi nii inglise keeles kui ka eesti keeles, et kui te esitate küsimuse, siis ainult paluks mikrofoni rääkida, et muidu ei tule tõlget. Nii. Jaa, seal paistab üks küsimus. Ootame hetke, et kuni jõuab mikrofon kohale.
Thank you for the nice presentation. I am Mülle Kisli from University of Tartu, and I would like to ask if you now make the assessment of quality assessment, you will get a quality mark. When the next time you will reassess? Have you planned for the next period?
Yeah. The quality mark is valid for 3 years. But it is, as in the business model and as in the method itself, it will be a reassessment process starting next year, an annual reassessment process. Like in the quality mark, actually here it says it's valid for 4 years, but we decided to make it valid for 3 years also because the accreditation of the ministry is valid for 3 years, sort of getting them to be hand in hand. But in the agreement we made with the lifelong learning centers that are not a part of the EQM tool, actually, we say that you agree to go into this process, you will pay the annual fee for year 2012, and you will pay the annual fee for 2013 and 14, and that's why, because you will get reassessed. But it should be a lighter process or easier process to get reassessment than the first one. So it will start, probably it will start not by the beginning of 2012, because the first learning providers that got the EQM got it in the middle of the year, but I believe it will start somewhere around April, May next year, the process.
Okay, yeah.
Kairi Solman from the ministry. I wanted to know that what do the centers see as the sort of additional benefits? Of course, you get the validation that the service or the training you provide has high quality, but do they see that this quality mark would attract more adults who would come to their courses, and what about the connection with the labor market? Do the employers see that this would be the partners if they have the quality mark for them?
Well, good question. Isn't that always said when you don't know the answer? First of all, what are the benefits for the learning providers? That is a question we're going to put in the survey next year. But from what they have said to the external assessor, those are his words, that they have really gained something out of it because they had to sort of go through this self-assessment form and ask themselves, is our business okay? And how can we improve it? But this is a question for the survey. About the employers, I'm not sure that they are aware of this European quality mark. And I'm not sure that they will sort of go into asking the learning providers, do you have the EQM? Oh, you don't have, so I'm not going to do business with you. It's also because those centers that we are working in close cooperation with, they are acknowledged in Iceland. You know they are delivering good service. But one of the things that we have a lot of educational funds that are a part of agreement between trade unions and association of employers, saying that sort of amount of your salary goes to an educational fund, and either you can apply for financial support or your employer can apply for financial support. And those funds are really asking for some sort of quality management system, so they can say, no, I cannot agree on this support. I will not support you financially because I know the learning provider you went to is not providing good service. So they are asking for the European quality mark. We are starting with our cooperative learning providers, but maybe other ones are will also come to us, especially if they get this answer from these educational funds that are saying, sorry, you don't have the EQM, you don't have been accredited, we will not support you or give you financial support. It is so often a question of money. And that is, of course, one of the things that is also, like I said, the new Act on Adult Education sets the tone, because it says you need a quality system to get financial support. So.
Okay, that was a very good question, and I hope also fairly complete answer. Kas on veel küsimusi? Hetkel ei tundu olevat. So I have also one question from my side. Basically what we talked yesterday, just prior to our today's session, was that basically this EQM assumes that first of all you do your self-assessment and then you get external assessment. You're hiring some external assessors who will visit you, make site visit and make their conclusions. And I understood that in Iceland you chose a national partner. What would you guess if you would, or if in case of Estonia, anyways, we would hire somebody, let's say from UK, and you told about sums like 900 and 1,200. What is your wild guess? What would be the annual fee if you really would have to pay assessor costs for somebody coming from abroad? Would it be like substantial increase, or would it be just a couple of hundred, or what is your wild guess?
Well, if you hire someone from your neighbor country, it might. I think it comes to the cost of traveling, mostly. So if you would get someone from say the UK to come and assess the learning providers in Iceland, we would also probably say we need more than one learning provider to be assessed at the same time. But it would raise the cost around, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's not very expensive to fly from London to Iceland, but from Estonia to Iceland would be very costly. So I would say maybe, well, at least 75%, maybe 100%.
Okay.
But
okay.
It's just a wild guess.
But basic principle is such that those assessors, you just cover their transportation and accommodation costs, but you are not paying any daily allowances or salaries for them.
Yes, we do a little bit. It's in the contract. Yeah, okay. It's in the contract with the assessor. So they charge us.
So
for,
both.
Yeah. So we get the annual fee and we pay the assessor.
Oh, okay.
So as such, the learning providers are not paying the assessor anything. They're just paying the annual fee to us, to the Education and Training Service Center, and we pay the assessor.
Okay. Yep. Very good. So those monetary issues are always very important, especially in Estonia. We always tend to calculate things and plan it, and now we got at least some idea how it would look like. But seems so that there are no further questions at this point of time. It was a very interesting presentation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Nii, aga meie saamegi siit edasi minna ja selles mõttes siin on nüüd programmis ongi nüüd selline põnev hüpe, et saamegi hüpata Islandi töötava süsteemi pealt Eestisse ja vaatame, et kas see sama asi siis, mis Islandis on nüüd avalikus sektoris või ütleme nii-öelda riigi rahastamise peal olevas segmendis läinud käima, et kuidas see siis Eestis töötab. Ja meie järgmine esineja on siis Heli Kaldas, kes on Eesti Rahvaülikoolide Liidu juhatuse liige ja rahvaülikoolid siis tegutsevad üle Eesti ja mulle endalegi üllatuseks vaatasin, et ka meie saared on täitsa esindatud, et palun.
Ja tere siis ka minu poolt, tervitan teid ka Eesti Rahvaülikoolide Liidu poolt ja tänase siis tõesti jätkuks sellele EQM projektile ja mudelile, mida nemad rakendavad siis väga ametlikult, oleme siis meie läbi viimas ühte sellist väikest eksperimenti, et teha seda mitteametlikult ja täiesti iseendale, täiesti tasuta ja täiesti hea ja suure rõõmuga. Et kõigepealt siis rahvaülikoolidest, et mis on siis meie jaoks rahvaülikool Rahvaülikoolide Liidus, et kes on see, kes on rahvaülikool. Ta ei pea kindlasti kandma oma nime rahvaülikool, kuid ta peab vastama mingisugustele teatud kriteeriumitele, mille me oleme siis oma keskise ühingus sätestanud. Et tõenäoliselt oleks ikkagi vaja õppijal teada, kus kohas on see kindel koht, kus see kool asub. Meie jaoks on ka väga oluline see, et see tegevus toimuks selles koolis aastaringselt, et õppijal on võimalus ja teadmine, et kui ma tahangi sügisel mõnele kursusele õppima asuda, siis ma võin sinna helistada ka juba kevadel või suve alguses veel, et teadupärast on juulikuu puhkusekuu, aga kõik ülejäänud kuud töötavad ka rahvaülikoolid sarnastele siis ka teistele koolidele. Meie jaoks on ka väga oluline see, et Rahvaülikool pakuks erinevates valdkondades koolitusi, et kui tõesti kool, kellel on põhitegevus ja võib-olla ongi üks koolitusvaldkond ainult, ütleme siis näiteks arvutikoolitus, siis tema meie mõistes nagu Rahvaülikooli mõistet välja ei kanna. Ja Rahvaülikoolide Liit sai loodud siis 2011. aasta 7. jaanuaril, et siis pea täitumas meil 2 aastat. Ja kõik need koolid tegelikult, kes täna Rahvaülikoolide Liitu kuuluvad, on täpselt samamoodi liikmed ka Eesti Vabaharidusliidule. Eelnevalt me olimegi kõik Vabaharidusliidu liikmed, kuid see vajadus tekkis peale sellist pooleteise aastast mõtisklust ja arutelu omavahel, et kuidas nagu jõulisemalt edasi minna selliste teatud tüüpi koolidega võib-olla, et kuidas paremini osa saada projektidest, et kas on mõistlik võib-olla koopereeruda sarnastel koolidel üle Eesti. Meie soovunelm on see, et meil oleks tõesti igas maakonnas võib-olla üks selline Rahvaülikooli tüüpi kool. Tänasel päeval on neid 7, kuigi võib öelda, et Rahvaülikooli ka nime kandvaid koole on rohkem. Et see pilt on väga sarnane tegelikult Islandile, et vahe on lihtsalt selles, et Islandil sealmaal, kus on tühi koht, on nendel ka tühi maa, aga meil on tõenäoliselt ikka päris palju inimesi ja koole ka nendes paikades olemas. Ja nii nagu on siis ka näha, eks ole, et mitte kõik ei kanna Rahvaülikooli nime, kuid neil on see õigus seda nime tõenäoliselt soovi korral vahetada, kui nad seda kunagi teha soovivad. Ja EKM-i juurde jõudsime meie just läbi selle projekti. Me ei ole osalenud Recall projektis, vaid oleme tõesti selles siis jätkuprojektis, mis on õpikoostööprojekt ja milleks siis 2 aasta jooksul tuleks siis välja mõelda need uued tegevused või viisid, kuidas siis erinevates riikides on võib-olla võimalik seda EKM-i mudelit rakendada. Ja meie 7 liikmest siis 6 olid valmis, et viia siis selline esmane enesehindamine läbi selle mudeli abil. Et siis kavaliselt on täpselt samamoodi, et esmalt oli ikkagi vaja väike koolitus läbi viia, kuigi raha ja aega on alati vähe, siis meie oma liidus rakendame alati Skype'i konverentsi versiooni, mille abil saab siis nii koolitused kui ka suuremad koosolekud läbi viia ja üldjuhul koguneme aastas ainult üldkoosolekuks kõik face-to-face kokku, mis muidugi ei tähenda seda, et me üldse varem ei kohtume ikka väga palju. Ja see esmane enesehindamine sai läbi viidud ja tõesti selle mudeli põhjal, nii nagu ta siis on välja kujunenud nendes samades brošüürides, on see tegelikult näha, mida Kutvinna just teile ütles, et on võimalik sealt laua pealt võtta. Ja kasutegur, siin on Pärnu Rahvaülikooli esindaja, kes siis räägib, et kui ma mõne kooli käest küsisin suuliselt, et mis siis tõesti see kasutegur on, siis see on nagu kvaliteediõpikus küll välja võetud, aga tõesti on hea meel tõdeda, et läbi selle väikese enda sisse vaatamise nad on ikkagi avastanud mõned kitsaskohad, millele tasuks rohkem tähelepanu pöörata ja leidnud ka kindlust sellest, et teatud teed on valitud nagu suhteliselt õigesti. Üks näide sellest, kuidas siis tegelikult see vorm välja näeb, et Kutvinna näitas ka, aga võib-olla seal paberkandjal ei olnud see hästi ära näha, et tõesti on välja toodud siis näiteks kriteerium ja siis pakkuja peab esitama omapoolse selgituse, et üldjuhul on sinna lisatud ka küsimus. Samamoodi siis peaksid olema need pakkujapoolsed dokumendid kusagil ära näha, et näiteks kui on õppekavad, ega te selgitategi ära, et on sidusus õppekavadega ja seal on kõik kirjas, siis tõesti, kui see välisekspert tahaks tulla, siis tema peaks ka neid õppekavasid nägema, kus kohas need siis nagu kirjas on. Ja mis on siis vahe, et selles guideline'is on täpselt samamoodi ka olemas need juhised, et terve selle, kui nagu rakendada täpselt nii, nagu Islandil on seda rakendatud, siis kui ma õigesti mäletan, siis sul võib olla terve selle hindamisprotsessi peale 2 niinimetatud siis seda valget kasti, mis siis tähendavad seda, et nende asjadega on veel vaja tegeleda, aga kui sa suudad selle eksperdile ära selgitada, et teie organisatsioonis see niimoodi toimibki ja teistmoodi nagu ei olegi võimalik, siis võib sulle jääda nagu selle märgi saamiseks 2 valget kasti. Et üldjuhul on siis tegelikult mudel annab, nagu te näete, ka ette ära sellise teatud tasandi, kuhu maani siis sa nagu peaksid jõudma. Et peaksid jõudma nagu sellele halli kastini. Ja paar näidet siis ka üks selline parenduskoht, et mida me märkasime, et mis oli sarnane kõikidele meie koolidele ja tõenäoliselt, kui te seda loete, siis te näete ka, et see tegelikult on väga, väga omane meie koolitüüpidele, et me oleme mittetulundusühingud ja meil töötab põhikohaga töötajaid suhteliselt vähe. Meil enamasti õpetajad käivad võlaõiguslike lepingutega läbi viimas teatud koolitusi ja viibivad mõned seal ka väga väheajaliselt. Et seepärast tõesti, et pakkuda selliseid professionaalseid koolitusi õpetajatele, et see on päris raske tagada. Küll aga me saame teha teatud soovitusi, et näiteks just kasutada ära nende Euroopa Liidu programme, et kui praegu oli Vabariigusliidul suur programm, mille raames sai päris paljud õpetajad tegelikult koolitust täiskasvanud õpetajate meistrikursusel, mis oli 2-aastane ja arvan, et väga tõhus. Et see soovituslik kohustuslik on minul siia alla pandud, sest et meie oma koolis oleme tõesti seda rakendanud kui soovituslikult kohustuslikku, et peaaegu kõik sellised 8-9 rohkem majas olevad õpetajad on selle meistrikursuse läbi käinud, kes meil juba aastaid tõesti töötavad ka. Enamus on need keelekoolitajad. Ja võimalus on muidugi see, et millega meie saame siis toetada see, et sa suudad osta ikkagi soetada vähemalt õppematerjale, et ka keeleõpetajatele näiteks ka õpetajaraamatuid ja selliseid kallimaid materjale kõrvale, mis toetab ikkagi tema igapäevatööd. Siis ühe tugevusena, mis me arvasime, et välja tuli, et siin võib-olla jälle selline hea koht, et Euroopa Liidu rahad on vahest ikkagi ka head asjad, et on koolitatud ka meie koole ja meie koolide personali väga palju näiteks õppekavade osas ja väljundipõhiste õppekavade koostamisel. Et selles osas on nagu koolidel tõesti need juba olemas teada, et miks õppekava on vaja, nad oskavad ja nad on aru saanud ka seda, et ka õppijale tuleb rääkida ja näidata ja üle vaadata temaga koos see õppekava ja suunata teda sinnamaani, et enne kui ta registreerib koolitusele, et ta tõesti loeks selle üle, vaataks läbi, et kas see on see ikkagi, mis tema tahab sellelt koolituselt saada. Et kas ta tuleb ikkagi õigesse kohta või mitte. Ja palju saame muidugi meie olla paindlikud, et rakendada ka individuaalseid õppekavasid ja rakendada ka väikegrupis õpet. Täpselt samamoodi on enamasti koolides, et peale esimest korda, kui sa oled tundi tulnud, siis sul on võimalus ka sellest loobuda või siis näiteks gruppi vahetada, kui me jälle räägime keelekursuste ja keelekursuste najal nagu väga hea näiteid tuua. Et kui see tase sul ikkagi ei sobi, siis sa saad valida järgmise taseme, vaadata, kas sa peaksid liikuma nagu ülespoole või allapoole. Või siis ka, kui nagu õpet on rohkem, siis võib-olla ka mõni õpetaja oma meetoditega ei sobi. Et selles me arvame, et me oleme nagu suhteliselt tugevad ja me oleme alati rahvaülikoolides rääkinud, et õppijakesksus on meile väga oluline. Ja see mudel, kui ma seda nagu esimest korda nägin internetis, ma jõudsin sinnamaani oma uurimustöö raames, et siis see jäi mulle kohe silma ja minust tekitas see suurt huvi, sest et minu meelest oli ta nagu väga lihtne. Ja kui me tänasel päeval nagu siis mõtleme, et mis me selle mudeliga nüüd edasi teeme, et 6 kooli on ennast ära hinnanud, tõesti teinud sellise lihtsalt hindamisprotsessi läbi, saanud selle alast koolitust, siis tuleviku tegevused on tegelikult meil ka olemas, et nüüd tõenäoliselt me peaksime uuesti läbi vaatama selle, mis me juba praegu oleme selle oktoobri-novembrikuu jooksul suhteliselt kiiresti ikkagi kirja pannud ja vaatama just selles samas Demingi ringi võtmes ja rohkem tõenäoliselt, mida ma märkasin analüüsimisel, et võib-olla päris alati ei ole nagu ära seostatud oma neid tegevusi ka oma missioonide ja visioonidega. Et mis on ikkagi ka kooli eesmärgid. Et teatud kohtades võib-olla tuleks ümber vaadata. Ja mis siis veel, mida meie liikmed tegelikult ise ka ei tea, mida mina nendele meelega ei öelnud, et tegelikkuses selle EKM-i kodulehel on olemas ka sellised näited täiesti iga kriteeriumi kohta, et kui sa selle kriteeriumi avad, siis sinna on toodud sellised näited, et näiteks, et kas see või see, et kuidas neid vastuseid kirjutada. Et esialgu, kui hakati nagu seda mudelit täitma või seda rakendama või siis ennast hindama seal meeskonnas koos või paari kaupa koos, kes kuidas nagu tegi, siis tekkis nagu väga palju selliseid mõtteid, aga samas ka selliseid mõtlema panevaid kohti, et no mida ma sinna nagu kirjutan. Aga tegelikkuses me nagu väga sageli ei adu, et kõik see meie igapäevane töö, mis me teeme, et see ongi see, mille sa sinna kirja paned. Aga siis ongi see samane asi, et mis siis kvaliteedi hindamises, kui me räägime, et me nagu teeme seda kõik, aga samas me nagu ei tea ka, kas me seda teeme. Et kui me käest küsitakse, et no kui sa tead, et sa kvaliteetne oled, siis jääme iga üks mõttesse, eks ole, et aga me arvame, et me oleme, sest me ju teeme. Et üks võimalus on siis see, et tõesti sa paned selle kirja ja sa lased selle natukene oma peast, kehast ja kogu organisatsioonist läbi. Mõlemad seisate juba mikrofonidega ootavad, et minu viimane 15 minutit on läbi. Aitäh teile!
No nii, rõõm näha, et see teema täiesti Eestis jookseb samamoodi ja eks ta ongi, et kõik need toredad igasugused raamistikud, eks ta tuleb lõpuks ikkagi tõlkida mingisuguseks lihtsaks asjaks, mida sa täidad. Ja kui sa sellega nagu hakkama saad, siis ta juba lähebki käima. Aga kas on küsimusi tekkinud? Et selline Eesti hea näide, et kuidagi äkki nagu võiks kuidagi, äkki kas minul nagu, kui ma vaatasin nagu esinemise stiili ja hääle tooni, siis minul küll tekkis nagu selline innustus, et äkki nagu võiks nagu rakendada, aga
ega see organisatsiooni sees ei ole kunagi niimoodi, et kõik on täiesti innustunud ja soovivad seda kõike rakendada, et meil on täpselt see sama lugu, et näiteks üks õpetaja, kes kohe ütlebki niimoodi, et see ei ole minu jaoks ja minu jaoks on see kunstlik tegevus ja mul ei ole nagu seda vaja ja ma ei tahagi küsida õppijate käest tagasi, sellepärast, et siis nad ainult kiidavad, mida kiitust ma ka vastu võtta ei oska. Nii et selles mõttes, et see arenemiskohti on, aga teisalt jälle, et kui me näiteks 4-5 õpetajat olime koos siis nagu juhtkonnaga ja võtsime läbi teatud kriteeriumi, siis üllatus, kui palju tegelikult õpetajad, me nii palju oma sees teeme nagu omavahel koolitusi, aga meie asutuses siis kui palju ühed õpetajad tegelikult said infot nagu teistelt õpetajatelt, et see küsimus nagu tekitas, see küsimus oli tõenäoliselt esitatud nagu teistmoodi, kui me tavaliselt oleme seda valdkonda nagu arutlenud ja see andis ka hoopis teistmoodi vastused, nii et ka iseenda organisatsiooni sees on seda võimalust, et on nii ja naapidi, aga samas vägev, kui pärast on kõik vägev. Mina olen ka see natukene hullukene, kellel on hakanud meeldima nagu see kvaliteedi asi, et mul lähevad silmad põlema, aga see ei ole mitte kõikidel, nii et ja ma olen ka tutvunud paljude inimestega, kellel on see kunagi meeldinud ja lõpuks üle läinud, sest et tundub, et see kvaliteedi teema on nagu nii ära lörtsitud ja selline võlts, et nii ta paraku on. Aga enesehindamisena ja iseenda jaoks meil oli nagu seda väga hea teha ja me jätkame sellega.
Nii, aga on tekkinud veel äkki mõni küsimus? Ei paista nagu olevat. Aga mis siis ikka? Täname!
Aitäh!
Et väikseks kommentaariks siin sellele, et kuidas nagu et Eestis on tõesti niimoodi, et on inimesi, kes on kvaliteedi fännid ja paljud neist on ka koondunud kvaliteediühingu ja ISO-klubi ja selliste algatuste ümber, et mul on olnud siin viimasel ajal võimalust Soome poole pealt vaadata, et Soomes on kuidagi nagu see lähenemine on nagu sügavamal natuke, kogu see kvaliteedi juhtimine, et see on nagu ühiskonnas sügavamal ja üks asi, mille peale näiteks soomlased saavad loota, on nende oma rahvuslikul kapitalil suurettevõtted, kes panevad seal selle kvaliteedi liikumisele õlga alla ja mitte ainult õlga, vaid ka raha alla. Ja selle tõttu jah, ma arvan, et see on ka üks suund, mis meil Eestis on, et loomulikult avalik sektor, aga ütleme, et ka selline erasektor. Aga minnes nüüd tänase programmiga edasi, et me vaatasime nüüd Islandit ja seda, et need Islandi mõtted töötavad väga, väga hästi ka Eestis, aga ütleme, et Islandil on võib-olla natukene selline teistsugune traditsioon ja ajalugu, aga väga põnev on vaadata, et kuidas siis need põhimõtted töötavad Leedus ja Leedust on meil siis järgmine esineja Arunas Peksta. Ta on siis juhtimiskonsultant ja Leedu täiskasvanu hariduse assotsiatsiooni president ja tegu on siis ka inimesega, kes on olnud ühel hetkel kultuuriminister Leedus ja hetkel siis tegeleb täpselt selle samaga, millest Tiia rääkis meile täna enne kohvipausi, ehk siis me oleme siin Ida-Euroopas olnud nagu koolitatavad alati. Aga nüüd ka Arunas juba koolitab teistes riikides siin Tadžikistan, Rumeenia, Jordaania ja nii edasi, et meil on juba midagi öelda ka teiste riikide jaoks. So, please, Lietuva.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And again, thank you, Ministry of Education and Research, inviting me. Thank you, Tina, for suggesting to invite me. And that was a good opportunity for me to look at the situation in Lithuania, of course. And then I made a small research of things on this, what is happening in Lithuania, and I want to share my findings now here with you. In fact, adult education takes place in very many, there are so many players there. And I used to say that, in fact, adult education, I think that's about 80% of adult education takes place outside of education system. It's in job trainings, etc., culture, social area, etc. So there's so many players there, and then we talk about adult education. Then we need somehow, to narrow ourselves. But for this occasion, I will give some short overview of different subsystems of adult education in Lithuania. First, I would like to say that, the problem is that, not a problem, but fact, that last government was conservative liberal. So you can imagine that the ideas about quality management roots in the philosophy. That means that the quality problem is agreement between the provider and the customer. And that market should solve all the quality issues. And of course, there are very many, there is money, there's public money, which is root somewhere put, we have some boxes of money, which is coming for adult education, and these are European Social Fund, EU structural funds. Ministries have their own money for adult education. That means it's a Ministry of Social Security and Labor, Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Education, etc., etc. Municipalities also have their own money for adult education. So there is no one model there. And in fact, the idea is that public procurement rules should ensure the quality. And I will show you this. This is kind of the table which is usually put into this call for proposals for projects. And we can see that the first criteria, of course, is the price, how much. Second criteria is quality. Third criteria, organization of training services and effectiveness of schedule of activities, etc. And I put here in yellow two lines that quality control system of training, they should be on place. And also there should be quality assurance of service providing. That's not training, but other services which are around training, premises, etc., etc. When you look then to the guidelines how to provide the projects, it's written there that you have to describe your system. They do not require any certificate of quality, but you have to describe how you will ensure the quality of trainings which you are providing. So that was first about this public procurement. Of course, we know sometimes that rules are fine, but practice is not always that fine like those, everything is written in those papers. And sometimes we find that the companies which win the competition quite strange. They just know how to write the papers, but in fact that's not that bunch of quality in their trainings. But it exists. It exists, and it's used, and we can call it kind of model. Yes, just for training providing. And of course, we have to take in mind that there is so much money in those all funds. It's hundreds of millions of euros in different projects. And almost all projects, whatever kind of project is there, usually they have this component of training. So it's always a question of quality of training in any project. And that would be construction, or it could be service providing, or social services, or education, whatever. Okay, let's go now for providers. There is, as I said already, there are so many training providers of adult education, of training of adults. Universities and colleges, they have their informal training programs, which they provide in service training for different specialities. These are vocational education and training centers or schools, which are also providing non-formal education for the students and the population. There are adult education centers which are similar to those which were described by our Icelandic colleague, which for the persons who didn't manage the second chance, you have, I think, also in Estonia this kind of schools for dropouts who dropped out somewhere else earlier in their life, and now they want to have the secondary school and they go to this adult education schools or centers. There are many qualification institutes at the ministries, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Finances, etc., who are providing trainings also in-service trainings for different specialists. There are numerous consultancy companies who are not providing not only consultancies, but also lots of trainings for management staff, etc. There are numerous NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who are providing training for their members and to the society in general. So there are so many players, as already said. Let's now look at these universities. Well, I made a small research what is happening in universities for in-service training programs. They're usually providing formal education. That's their mission. But of course, they are providing many in-service training programs, and those in-service training programs are increasing in numbers now. And it's one of the trend of universities that in future they will go more and more into this in-service training providing. We have several models in universities, this kind of continuing studies institutes or centers at the university, which are dealing, it's just an institution at the university which is dealing only for in-service training. And for Vilnius University, there is a different model. They have continuous studies programs, which are not in the separate institution, but they do it in the faculties. So there are different models there. And each university applies, of course, its own model and procedures. I didn't find any university which applies any kind of model, quality assurance model, or ISO, or whatever. I didn't find any. It's usually internal program accreditation system. Usually there is a kind of accreditation committee in the university which looks at the programs, approves those programs, and then they go for training. Šiauliai University and Vilnius University have special studies quality management centers. Of course, they are mostly dealing with the formal education, but part of their work is also to control this quality of non-formal education of students. I would like to show this example of Klaipėda University, the Continuing Studies Institute of Klaipėda University. They apply the Ministry of Education and Science of Lithuania had issued rules of evaluation and accreditation of institutions providing qualification perfection services for teachers and learning support specialists. That's quite a complicated title of the document, but the idea is that Ministry of Education decided that they need to accredit all institutions which want to deal in service training of teachers. And only accredited organizations can do that. And this Klaipėda University Institute, they are dealing with in-service training of teachers, but also they are dealing with very many other issues about social services, etc., and then healthcare, etc. So they went through this procedure not just for training part, for teachers training part, but for all institutions to all their training services. And the procedure in this document is, again, it's a usual system that first self-evaluation and then external evaluation. It's almost everywhere the same system. And they have two areas. There is, in this document, you have to evaluate yourself according to two areas: learning environment and management and administration. And if you receive this accreditation, it's for 5 years. So what is there in learning environment? You have to look at the quality of different issues: library, internet, seminars, courses, lectures, and other training events, dissemination of good practice and bank of educational experience, consulting, involvement in project, and expertise. That means teachers or professors. For your accreditation, you have to describe 4 of those 7 areas, and those 2 in italics are compulsory. You have to compulsory to describe those areas which I put in italics, and then you can choose 2 additional others. And I looked at the questionnaire. There are no criteria, there are no standards. You have to describe it, as you said, there are two models, yes. According the standards and according activities, you have to describe what you are doing, how you yourself evaluate yourself in this, and then you invite external assessors. And management and administration part, you have to describe management system, human resource management and development. You have to describe how you develop the image of your organization, how you present yourself to the public. You have to show how you are planning and how you are administering the institution, and how you manage training programs. These are areas which you have to describe according to this document. And I asked the director of the institute why she did that, what was the purpose, and it's 5 years, but every year you have to reassess yourself. But you don't invite external assessor, you just reassess every year. And she said that it was good for us to look at ourselves from outside, and to find the bottlenecks, as what they said, and to develop things. And then she said that it was good exercise for our institution to develop ourselves. Now, regarding vocational education and training system. In 2008, Qualifications and VAT Development Center, there is a kind of center at the Ministry of Education, they had a project, European Union project, and they designed the concept of VAT quality assurance system in Lithuania. And I think that this now is developing the most consistent system model now. But from 2008, they just designed this concept and nothing happened. Now they got new money from European Union, from a social fund, and they now go further. All this system is based on the cycle. They say that all quality assurance should go through the cycle: planning, implementation, evaluation, and review. This is the basis there. But each VAT provider is encouraged to put into place internal system, but they are free to choose what kind of system they choose. The only requirement is that this system should take all cycle. All 4 steps of the cycle should be in place. It doesn't matter which kind of this model you choose. Model doesn't makes no difference between formal and non-formal education. It evaluates institution as it is, as institution, not formal or non-formal. It doesn't matter. Now they have, as I said, new project, which is development of internal quality assurance mechanism VAT institutions. And it started in 2011 and will continue somewhere May next year. Now they're in the process. They involve 79 VAT institutions and they're connected into 10 consortium. They are meeting with each other, discussing, sharing information, sharing experiences, etc. Last week they had a meeting of the project and they were sharing this on Thursday, but I didn't participate there. I just asked somebody who was participating how it goes. So what is here in this system now? Occurred that most of those 79 chose ISO 9001 as a quality management system. Some of them chose Common Assessment Framework, some EQUAS, which deals with social services, and one center designed its own quality assurance system. I asked why. Most of them chose ISO 9001. There are so many consultancies in Lithuania who are helping companies to introduce ISO, that they found that it's easiest way of dealing. They hire the company, consultancy, which is coming to the center and assisting them to develop. It's easier, to go, somebody does the work, not you yourself. Of course, you have to put your own efforts, but in fact, they went through easiest way. That's clear. I asked what is the perception of all this procedure in this VAT area, and I said this is one more bureaucracy. Okay, if they require, we will do something, and because it's easiest to hire somebody, they hire and apply ISO. And they apply it, they improve, their papers, and they put it into the deep drawer and forget it till the next for next 5 years, because accreditation is usually for 5 years or 4 years, so till the next step they forget it, because it's just bureaucracy. And very few of those VAT centers really see this as opportunity of improving, of having, to developing quality culture in the institution, etc. Okay. Now let's go to private consultancies who are also doing this training. Most of consultancies have this ESO. If they if they are concerned about the quality of the organization, they go for ISO 9001. It's not really consultancy, it's a public institution, but they work like, in fact, they are consultancy. In the Human Studies Center, which was part of the first project Recall, and they participated in developing this European quality mark, and they tried to apply this quality mark for themselves. So they have ISO and European quality mark. And they went now for the second cycle already, because they were the first who had, in fact, the European quality mark in Europe. So I asked also the lady who is dealing with the trainings in this Human Studies Center why they did that and what were the results. And she said, when we looked at this EQM, we found that we are doing very many things similar, they were concerned about the quality, and even without this European quality mark, they already were developing many things which are there. So they decided to apply it, and they're using it. And why you need it? She said, because we are going for competitions on European level, and in many cases they require some certificate of quality. And when they went to one of these competitions, and they provided this EQM, assessors of that competition, they had no idea what is this, and they were not sure if it could be applied as a quality certificate. But when they went into the details of EQM, they said, okay, we can say that this is good model of quality assurance. That's why she said, it works. So it shows that it works. There are numerous trainings of civil servants. For training of civil servants, there is an institution, Civil Service Department at the Ministry of Internal Affairs, who is in charge of development of civil service in Lithuania. And they have the rules, the internal legislation, which says they require accreditation of training providers, but there is no requirement for certificate. You have to provide information about yourself. I did it. I am also a certified trainer for this department. You have to provide information about yourself, you have to provide to show your experience, etc., and you can be registered. Then you have to accredit your programs which you are delivering for civil servants. So this is kind of quality system in civil service. And of course, each training event ends with the evaluation by participants. It's a normal system everywhere. There's satisfaction level. If we go to NGOs, usually they don't have any model, quality assurance model. They have quality. They do very quality trainings, no problem with that, of course, with some exceptions. But if you ask what kind of model you apply, they will not be able to answer, of course. But of course, what they are doing, they are checking the trainers, they are selecting the trainers, they are trying to find which trainers, asking other NGOs who already met them. There's, this kind of relation between the training providers, between the customers. They just check information. They they try to talk with the providers, and as we were talking yesterday, it was your idea, but it works usually in the private sector and then in NGO sector also, that you communicate with your customer and you ask expectations of the customer, you ask what exactly they want, what they need, and then you try to tailor-made your program according to the needs of your customer. That is the major, in fact, quality assurance system there. So you see that there is no model. And as you said also, that it's really, in fact, it's not possible. It's impossible to have one model which fits. There is no hammer which fits all the nails. The same story here. So, but of course we are concerned about the quality. We are doing something, and now we drafted a new version of the law on non-formal adult education. I am a part of a working group. In fact, it was my initiative to redraft the law, and we also put several things about quality there. And now it's in the parliament, registered in the parliament. We tried to register it before the elections. Elections just finished in Lithuania, and new government now is under formation. We don't know who will be the minister, but philosophy of parties changed now. From conservative and liberal, we have social democrats. And in fact, social democratic philosophy in Nordic countries is mostly concerned with adult education. When we were discussing about Grundtvig program, 10-year University of Grundtvig program in Copenhagen, we found that problems with adult education occurred in all Europe because of the turn to the right in most countries of Europe. Now that will possibly turn to the little bit to the left, and possibly for adult education it will be a little bit easier. I hope so. Okay, thank you. Questions, please?
Kas tekkis mõningaid mõtteid siis Leedu näite põhjal? Et võite vabalt ka eesti keeles küsida, et kui tundub, et inglise keeles ei ole jah, palun.
I just wanted to ask that you mentioned that you are drafting a new law or rewriting the law on non-formal adult education. Would you perhaps very shortly say that what will the changes include, and are you also trying to add some quality requirements, or what is this change about? Thank you.
We cannot, of course, put any standards in the law. It's not possible. But we put the norm that the Ministry of Education and Science has to put the system of quality management for non-formal education, for adult education. That we give the order for the law, gives the order to the minister to develop the system. Second thing, what we are trying, we put there, that we have to establish a council of non-formal adult education, which will be approved by the Prime Minister, and all stakeholders should be taken into the council. And we think, my idea and the idea of the group is one of the first works of this council should be establishing working group on quality issues, and develop, further to this, starting more wide discussion about quality in adult education. So this is our idea. And of course, we put also saying that if you want to get money from public funds for adult education, you should be accredited. So accreditation system we are already putting there, you should accredit, but not programs. You as a training provider should be accredited. There was idea to put also accreditation of training programs, non-formal education, but I said no, please don't do that. There were ideas, but I opposed for those ideas. Why? Because those training programs are so numerous and so different and tailor-made to the needs of the customer that it will be totally impossible. You know, there will be too many of them, and that will be enormous administrative work to go, especially when you go. You need training for an organization needs training next week, for example. So how long the procedures should take, you know, that you can have this training program accredited. So we leave it for the market. That institution, yes, but training programs have to be, you know, adjusted between the provider and the customer. What exactly needed is in the program.
So very good. That's exactly the question always. Which level? What is the level you are going to regulate? Are you going very deep into some program level, or you just stay on those consultants and trainers level?
Yes, that is a problem, of course. And when we were discussing again yesterday about those monetary things, which we just now discussed with our Icelandic colleagues, we are thinking that somehow if we will apply any kind of model or models, we need then to think about state financing for administering the model. That, you know, that the applicant should not take all the burden of applying the model, especially if we are a small training institution, if we are NGO, we will be not able to pay those thousands of euros for getting any certification. So there should be some kind of state system of implementing the model. We have to apply, but somebody has to pay for that, not us. Because there will be we see the problem that we will go to elite training providers. That means big companies who can afford certification because they have money. And those who cannot afford money, so they will be excluded from the certification process. So we need somehow, you know, to make this available for everybody who wants to apply and to show their quality. So that is the philosophy behind that.
No nii, kas on vahepeal tekkinud veel mõtteid? Kui tundub, et hetkel ei ole, siis I would ask one question myself as well. Earlier we described a lot this EQM, European Quality Mark, but in your presentation you mentioned ISO 9000 and CAF and other models. What is your vision about Lithuanian development? What role do you think will play this EQM model? Is it just occasion? Is it just forgotten for the moment? Will it revive? How do you see the future in Lithuania?
The EQM model is still not very much known in Lithuania. That is not widespread, you know, knowledge that there is this kind of model. 2 weeks ago, I made a webinar for Lithuania. I made a seminar on web where I explained what is this, and 78 participants were connected. Then It was put on the website, and then 360 participants looked at this presentation. So it's spreading, but in fact, of course, we still don't have real knowledge and real need for that, because there are so many different models. So if we want to spread it more, we need to put an effort for advertising this model. But the problem is the money. Yes, that is the money. For self-assessment, it's fine. A good questionnaire, good guidelines, how to fill the questionnaire, as our colleague just was telling. So for self-assessment, it's a very good instrument. But if you want to have this external assessment and to receive the mark, then it goes again with the money. Money must be funny in a rich man's world. So for rich man, it's fine.
Okay. Then if I would develop your ideas further, do you see, I see here clearly like two different paths, like Island has chosen this EQM, you are more like letting it freely to be chosen, and then they are choosing just because there are consultants available, they choose this ISA 9001. But do you think we might do some cooperation between Estonia and Lithuania? Maybe what would be kind of logical next step, or how do you see? Maybe we could somehow cooperate, or some because anyways our historic situation is pretty similar, and also what you mentioned about this Swedish famous song. In this regard, we are also pretty in similar position, I would say. So again, if we go for development and further go with EQM and go for receiving that, awarding the mark, possibly one of the ways to reduce the costs could be that we in Baltics make a pool of external assessors. Mm-hmm. But we need to train those external assessors. We need to put them into one place and to go through guidelines that they apply the same standards. Mm-hmm. That is, and we can. Then it would be much easier for us if we have external assessors. Mm-hmm. In Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. That would be much cheaper, and we could do that. I think that will be no problem. But for that we need, as you said, cooperation. Okay. And we can start it today. Okay, so I think that that sounds fairly rational to share costs and share, create such pool. Won't you? But what are results? You told there is very popular this ISA 9001 in Lithuania. Would it be somehow this something reasonable you would suggest for Estonia as well, or what do you think about that?
Again, we have a very good reference, that Human Studies Center, because they have EQM and ISO 9001. And why they need this EQM? They said, okay, ISO is general management standard. It's fine as to check the quality of the institution in general, in management, but EQM gives you insights on your training quality. Mm-hmm. And that is important. It's not general management system. It's quality management on training, on adult education, in fact, non-formal adult education. That is specially designed for this model. Mm-hmm. That's why.
So you would rather prefer this EQM, yes. Yeah, not yes. This general yes. one tool for anything, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but then it's very good idea, and we got also pleasant vision. We created a vision of Pan-Baltic development.
Oh my goodness. Yes,
Sounds
I'm famous visionarist.
So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okei, ja nii kena visiooniga sellise ühise Balti arengutee ja ühise assessorite kogu loomisest me oleme teeninud välja täna lõunapausi. Ja koguneme jälle siin pärast lõunat, mis on meil 14:10. Aitäh!